Welcome all. We will go ahead and call the May 19th, 2021 APC public hearing to order. With that, I'd like to take a minute and thank several people on this. First of all, thanks to staff, IT, the attorneys, petitioners, citizens, and commission members for all their hard work, patience, and perseverance throughout this last year. Please continue to have patience with us as we navigate through the new waters of a hybrid meeting. So this is our first one where we've got some people virtual or may have people virtual and may not. And so I'll screw it up some way, shape, or form, and I appreciate your forgiveness as we go through this. I also would like to welcome our newest member, Mr. Bob Metzger, to the commission. Thank you for joining us tonight. And with that, Mr. Burns, if you would call the roll, please.
Jackson Bogan.
Present.
Larry Leverance.
Present.
Roland Winger.
Present.
Gary Schroeder.
Present.
Jerry Reynolds. Jerry Reynolds. Absent. Greg Jones.
Present.
Bob Metzger.
Present.
Diana Looper.
Present.
Vicki Pearl.
Present.
Michelle Dennis.
Present.
Tom Murtaugh.
Present.
Perry Brown.
Present.
Mr. Brown is virtually present. Tracy Brown.
Present.
Jason Dumkowski. Jason Dumkowski. Absent. Lisa Dollum.
Present.
Kathy Parker.
Present.
Carla Snodgrass.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. On to the briefing session.
Thank you, Mr. President. There are two continued cases on the agenda. Z 2827, Joshua Shives, must be continued because the legal advertisement did not get published, and Z 2828, Heron Bay Development LLC, has requested a continuance to the June 16th meeting of the APC in order to amend the filing from a request to rezone to R1A, instead to request to rezone to R1B. The other cases on the agenda are ready to be heard.
Thank you, Mr. Hiddle. Thank you, Mr. Hiddle. Approval of the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the April 21st, 2021 meeting as submitted.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Confirmation, Perry, was that for approval of the minutes or denial?
Approval of the minutes.
Thank you, sir. On to new business.
I move to hear and approve the request for a primary approval extension for Rainy Brook subdivision, Part 2, Section 2, S 3269.
I second.
Mr. Lamb.
I think we lost our slideshow, but I'll describe it to you as best I can.
Sorry, Don,
There we
we're
go.
working on it.
I had it all running just fine for you.
I know.
There it is. If this looks familiar from last month's meeting, it is. Last month, you voted to authorize this request to come before you here at this meeting. This is a two-year extension of the primary approval for Rainy Brook subdivision. It's the seventh. It's been around a while. It's the last section of Rainy Brook. What's remaining is about 5.5 acres and 14 lots to be platted someday. Everything was that's north of the southeast corner has been put in and accepted for some time. As I said, the Planning Commission did authorize this request last month. Staff has no objections and recommends approval contingent on any applicable conditions in the original primary approval.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Petitioner's representative wishing to speak on this petition?
Yeah, this is Tim Ballenseeper with T-Bird Design, and requesting approval of the request, and we agree with all the staff's comments, and again, just looking for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Ballenseeper. Commission members, any questions, comments, concerns? Any citizens' comments in regard to this petition? Ryan, if you'd give us a 30-second pause and let us know how the social media channels are working, please.
Okay, stand by.
Thank you. Since we haven't been at this for a little while, reminder, this will be a yellow ballot S3269 Rainy Brook, and we'll need to complete this, and Mr. Hiddle will pick them up here in a moment.
And we have no public comment on social media.
Thank you, Ryan. With that, we will go ahead and complete your ballot, please. Don, one reminder, if you would look for the virtual ballots for us, please, and let us know what the results are.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
David, did you want to get those? You want me to get them? I don't care. Okay. That side. All done.
You got them all.
Got them all, I think.
I can confirm that Perry Brown has voted to approve.
Thank you, Don.
We have 14 paper ballots passed, and all of them in favor of the request.
That is the total.
Thank you very much. On to the public hearing, where I will read a meetings procedure. For those of you unfamiliar with our procedures, the Commission would like you to know the following. When we hear a request to subdivide land, we are only concerned as to whether the actual drawing showing the division into lots meets the technical requirements of our ordinance. The question of appropriateness has already been determined. Anyone wishing to make comments or provide us with the information regarding any subdivision petitions will be given the opportunity to do so. When we are hearing a request for a change in zoning, we are trying to determine if the new zone being requested and the uses allowed in that zone are appropriate to that property and supported by the comprehensive plan. With each case being heard, our staff will present its report, then the person requesting the rezone will be given an opportunity to speak. Following that, those of you wishing to speak in favor of the rezone will be recognized, and then those of you wish to oppose it will have a turn. This will be your only time to speak. The person requesting the action will be allowed a rebuttal. Plan Commission members will then ask questions and finally vote. Please limit your statements to no more than 5 minutes, and we ask that you not repeat what others before you have already said. We are a 17-member body, and the majority of 17 is 9. Regardless of how many commissioners are actually present, at least 9 votes in favor or 9 votes against are required for our action to be official. If fewer than 9 of us agree to either approve or disapprove an action, that case must be heard again next month. Our vote on a request to subdivide is final. Our vote on a request to rezone serves as a recommendation to the appropriate city council, town council, or county commissioners, who must ultimately decide on changes in zoning. When addressing the commission, please state your name and address for the record. Cell phones must be turned off while the meeting is in session. If you need to make a call, please step out of the room before using your cell phone. All exhibits presented to the commission become the property of the commission.
I move that it be incorporated into the public hearing portion of each application to be heard this evening and to become part of the evidence at such hearing, the Unified Zoning Ordinance, the Unified Subdivision Ordinance, the Comprehensive Plan, the bylaws of the Area Plan Commission, the application, all documents filed therewith, the staff report, and recommendation on the application to be heard this evening, and responses from checkpoint agencies.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
I move that are you ready for the continuances?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I move that Z2827 Joshua Shivers R1 to AW and Z2828 Heron Bay Development LLC R1 to R1A be continued to the June 16th APC public hearing agenda.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That motion carries.
I move to hear and vote on UZO Amendment Number 100.
I second.
Kathy?
Okay, UZO Amendment 100 has 4 different issues that are covered under this amendment. The first one corrects an oversight in the ordinance. This is regarding basement window wells. Currently, the ordinance allows basement window wells to intrude into side setbacks, but not in front or rear setbacks. The West Lafayette Administrative Officer asked us to take a look at this, so we did. This amendment would allow window wells up to 4 feet into a front or rear setback with the administrative officer's approval. Are there any questions about that portion? Okay. The second item has to do with contractors that do building construction, asphalt or concrete paving, and specialty trade contractors. Currently, the ordinance limits the lot size to 5 acres. They have to be located on 5 acres at least. Also, buildings can be no more than 5,000 square feet in size, in square footage. And that's just in the rural zones. So for example, if I have a 4-acre tract zoned agricultural, and I want to build a 6,000 square foot building and I'm an electrical contractor, I can't do it. That has to be rezoned to general business in the way the ordinance currently is. So what we're proposing, and that's because those standards are in the use table of the ordinance. The use table is not something that can be varied. So it's not something you could get a variance from, you would have to rezone. This will fix that. So what we're proposing would be bump up the 5,000 square foot building limitation to 8,000 square feet. We're going to allow them on acreage as small as 2 acres instead of the 5-acre requirement. But the main thing is we're taking this out of the use table and into Chapter 4, which means this is something that could be varied. They could get a variance if they need something bigger. Does that make sense? Any questions?
I just want to clarify, so what this does, 2 things. Number 1, allows a little bit more leniency on the size of the building that's being built, and if they in fact need a larger building than 8,000, they do not have to go through the rezone process, they simply request a variance.
Correct.
Great, and thank you.
Okay. The third part of this is correcting a bit of an overreach in staff's opinion. It's regarding the parking standard for industrial truck services and farm machinery service and repair. Currently, the ordinance requires those types of businesses to have the same amount of parking as a grocery store would have, and that's way too excessive. So we're proposing dialing that back to 1 space per employee on the largest shift, plus 1 per 200 square feet of office, sales, or similar floor area. Any questions about that? Okay. Finally, we come to the use of shipping containers as on-site storage buildings. This was debated the most at Ordinance Committee, but we did finally reach a consensus. Now, we're not talking about using shipping containers as a residence. That's something else entirely. We're only looking at using them for an accessory storage building. So Building Commissioner Mike Wolf has been receiving a lot of phone calls about this, people wanting to know what the rules are, if they could have a shipping container on their property. And basically, there are no rules right now. Except in the commercial zones, we do limit shipping containers in the commercial zones. So here's what we're proposing. We would limit their number to 4 per farming operation in any zone. So if you meet the definition of farm, you can have up to 4. If you're a residence that's not part of a farm and you're on at least 2 acres of land, you can have 1, but it can't be zoned residentially. Does that make sense? So, for example, If I live in a parcelization that's 2 acres in size and I'm zoned agricultural, I can have 1. If I live in a lot in Rainy Brook, for example, I can't. It's zoned residential and it's not 2 acres in size. So this limits them. You can't do it in a subdivision pretty much, but if you've got enough acreage, you can.
What if it's a rural estate? Well, how would that be classified?
Oh, that's a really good question. I believe a rural estate is in that section of our ordinance that's rural, the rural zones.
So that would not be classified as residential then, so it would be permitted.
I think you're right. Yeah, we might want to take a look at that. Because rural estate lots can be anywhere from 1 acre to 3 acres in size. So.
Kathy, when you say you want to take a look at it, do you want us to continue this to the next meeting, take a look at it, or what would you like?
Well, yeah, we could. We could do that.
My sense is you can go forward with it. It's a fine-tuning at worst, and it may well be something that doesn't need any kind of fine-tuning if it's exactly as you've indicated, which is my memory also, but we'll
Right.
confirm that. If it needs an adjustment, we can do that.
Come back here if it needs
We got
an
a lot
adjustment.
here that can be considered without
Right.
resort to looking at the rural estate issue.
We don't have a lot of rural estates out there, maybe 15 or so. But we have a couple that are in the works right now. We could, if that's an issue for the developer, we could have them add restrictive covenants that limit this use if they so desire. Just an idea.
Thank you.
All right.
Any questions?
Oh, one more thing real quick. We also addressed the use of temporary shipping containers, like, I think they're called pods, P-O-D-S. So that is permitted up to 90 days. If a person wants to use them beyond 90 days, they would have to talk that over with the AO and get the administrative officer to approve that for some reason. They'd have to have a reason.
Thank you.
Did you have a question? You had a question.
Yeah, I was wondering, what about okay, I live in Clarks Hill. I know there's a few people that have them. Is it going to be a grandfathered in type of thing, or are they going to have to move them?
No, if it's existing, they would be grandfathered.
Any other questions? Any citizens' comments?
I've
Right.
got nothing on social media presently.
All right, let's give it 30 seconds.
All right. Stand by.
And a reminder, yellow ballot, UZO Amendment Number 100, and the applicant is APC.
Yeah, that's the way it would work out. I just feel funny about allowing them, we're neighbors. I have 1 acre, you have 2 acres. You're allowed, I'm not. Seems kind of weird.
Okay, no further comment on this item.
Thank you, Ryan.
I don't think so either.
Don, if you can let us know the electronic votes, please. We do not need to know the names, just the yays or nays, total.
I have 1 vote for approval.
Thank you.
Fourteen paper ballots submitted, all for approval.
And that is 15 in favor, 0 against.
Thank you. On to Z2829.
I move to hear and approve Z2829, Faith Legacy Properties Incorporated, A to I-1.
I second.
Mr. O'Gara, this one's you.
All right. I got a little bit of history with this site. The petitioner came to us in February of this year with sort of a simple inquiry. They were interested in expanding a pole barn or building onto a new one. At the time, they were kind of deciding what to do, and they were just throwing out some feelers about what they could accomplish in their current zone. The church in question operates kind of multiple different church ministry related type activities on this site. The one that's connected with this that is necessitates the rezone effort is for essentially a sawmill type use. Bringing in lumber and then doing that kind of initial cut and that sort of thing. And this is connected with a kind of a rehabilitation type service that the church provides for individuals who are looking for vocational skills, that sort of thing. I'll let the church and their representative explain more about what they do there. But in any event, what's pertinent here is that use, that sawmill type use, that wood production type use, is not permitted in the A zone. It's not considered an agricultural type use. It's considered more of a light industrial use. And then depending on the severity, it could go to a more heavier industrial use. So as you can see here from the zoning map, agricultural zonings everywhere. We have obviously some floodplain off to the northwest. Go ahead and zoom into the site here. There we go. Again, I'll let the petitioner kind of lay out what they do and how things are arranged presently on the property. But there are, obviously in this area, it's heavily agricultural, and there's single-family homes in the vicinity, kind of scattered in that kind of rural context. There is no sewer service, obviously, out this far, and so any development here that would trigger a commercial septic or a non-residential septic situation, that would have to pass through the county health department for approval. Let me see here. Buffer yards from A zone or A to I zones are required. In this instance, the administrative officer can kind of determine what's appropriate given what's already out there. Obviously, you can see what the boundaries would be for this site, and so that would fall under his office there. Also relevant to the petition, a commitment has been submitted. During staff's discussions with the petitioner, this issue came up as a possible remedy for really trying to limit the use of this proposed use, this sawmill type use, to really just this entity. The Industrial 1 district does have a host of different activities that can occur on it, and so as a kind of as a good faith effort here on the part of the church, they were interested in sort of restricting what they can do to really limit their ability to just do what they were planning on doing and not really exceed that in any way, and so the commitment does bind them to that. So by and large, the use, given its heavy restrictions via the commitment, staff, generally any sort of up zone off the sewer grid, we typically look down on, but they've been approved in the past in situations where the use that's being brought to the site is not really a heavy, wouldn't be in need of a heavy sewer type system, or even in some instances, not even a commercial septic. It really depends. So there are cases that we've done in the past where we've done that, or at the very least legitimize existing industrial uses that sort of predate the comp plan. There's one out near Delphi, which I believe we had done recently. So in that instance, I think staff is recommending approval with the commitment, because of the commitment and the restrictions placed on the use. It really does limit this property to a fairly focused sort of use moving forward. So much so that really, anything, if the church ever wanted to do anything else, they would probably be in a position to rezone it again if they wanted to expand agricultural uses. they'd have to abandon the sawmill and rezone it back to an A zone, just as an example. So that's all I've got on this for now. So we are recommending approval with commitment. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ryan.
Incidentally, we do have one letter, Mr. President, in denial. It's a petition, presumably of neighbors in the vicinity. I'd be happy to read that or even show it to you on the screen if when called for.
Thank you. We'll have you read that here shortly, and if I forget, please nudge me. Virtually, of course. Petitioner's representative wishing to speak on this?
So working now? Start over. Tyler Oakes with Ball Eggleston Law Firm on behalf of petitioner Faith Legacy Properties. We are asking the board for recommendation for a rezone from an A to an I1. As Ryan kind of already put it, they're looking to implement a sawmill. What currently goes on there is to the right, there's a halfway house type situation where they do rehabilitative housing. They have counseling for the members that go there. And then to the left, which is the area we're dealing with, they're looking to provide some vocational job training so that the men who go here have a skill, marketable skill when they get out. This is a big tract of land. It's 16 acres. This is a split lot rezone. So only 10.77 of the acres are being rezoned to an I1. The bottom strip, which you can't really see here, the bottom strip will remain, you can see it better there, that bottom strip will remain an agricultural zone. So even though it's a split lot, we kind of have a natural buffer zone. So we're more than happy to work with the administrative officer if he needs additional buffer zones. Faith owns the land to the east, directly to the east and directly to the west, and then with the split lot, they still have that bottom half that they own as well. So they're surrounded on all sides to this lot with property that they own. To formally kind of give you all a better understanding of what goes on there, I'm going to have Joe Blake come up and speak on behalf of Faith and kind of talk about the program.
Welcome, Mr. Blake. Name and address for the record, if you would, please.
Thank you. Joe Blake, 4922 East 500 North, Lafayette. Good evening, Commissioners. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I'm a local real estate developer and a partner of Ironman Properties, and I serve as chairman of the board at Faith Church here in Lafayette. I've served at Restoration Men's Ministry since its inception in 2016. I serve there as a biblical counselor, or a mentor and friend to the men who come through the program. I'm also a donor to the program because I believe in what we're doing there. A little bit about this ministry. Faith Biblical Counseling Ministry for 45 years has been providing free faith-based counseling to our community. We work with people struggling with anger, fear, worry, depression, various addictions, problems with their marriage, problems with their work or school. Many of our 32 counselors possess advanced degrees, and they're accredited by an outside certifying agency. One of the challenges is that people most in need of counseling are often those who are at least able to pay for counseling. So that's where we see our ministry fitting in and providing a service to our community. We hope that the tens of thousands of free counseling hours over those 45 years have helped people who are struggling with problems, issues in their lives. But we also recognize that from time to time that a counseling session once a week doesn't get the job done for people. And so that's why we have two residential treatment facilities here in Lafayette. The first one that was established is Vision of Hope, which is on our east campus. It's a residential facility for young ladies who are struggling with addictions or self-harm or unplanned pregnancies. And we can accommodate up to 24 ladies there. The second program that we have is what we're talking about tonight, the men's ministry at Bethany Farms, which is a ministry for men struggling with addictions. So a little bit about Bethany Farms. It's a 100-acre tract that has been established on 800 North. It was gifted to Faith Church 13 years ago by a family from outside of our church. The reason it was given to us is because they understood that what we were about as a ministry, that we were trying to help people who were struggling with life issues, and the donor wished to have the property used for Christian ministry purposes. At the time, the property contained a house, a concrete grain silo, and a barn that dates back to the 1800s, along with 17 lots that were created by the previous owner along with APC on that 100 acres, which would allow for a residential use on each of those 17 lots. Over the last 16 years, we have renovated the house and the barn. We've built 2 duplexes there. We've planted an orchard. We've developed a commercial tree nursery there. It is possible, but not likely, to build one more duplex near where you see the proposed barn here, but that's not currently in the plans. The funds are not available for that, but it is a possibility. So over the years, we've used the houses for various ministry, religious uses. We've housed retired missionaries. We've housed seminary students. We've housed individuals struggling with addictions as we're using it now. So a little bit about the program. In 2016, we began this program. It's a 30-week residential program for men who are committed to change their lives. Each week is full of classes, counseling, homework, caring for themselves, and work, and more work, and more work. The men who come here make a sacrifice to come. They give up phones, cars, every liberty that they have. They quit jobs and they move to Lafayette because they are desperate to change. They are largely self-supporting financially due to the revenue generated from the work that they do. The revenue comes from a commercial nursery on the property, a wood shop where they fabricate custom wood products, Christmas tree sales, hardwoods from the sawmill, and employment at the industrial pallet factory south of town. We have a capacity at the ministry for 12 men, and we currently have 7 men in the program. To give you a flavor for the men in the program and what we're trying to do is I'm currently counseling a 40-year-old man with a wife and 6 children who has struggled with alcohol abuse for the last 8 years and was at the end of his rope and had no other options, so he came to Restoration. Another 44-year-old man with 3 children, a wife and 3 children, has lived a life of deceit his whole adult life, and he realizes it's time to change, and he needs a place to come to spend time to make that change. So a little bit about the request tonight. The current request is the building of a pole barn to house wood products and a workshop. At the beginning of this year, we had a generous donor who offered, not a part of our church, but outside of the church and seeing what we were doing with this program, who approached us and offered us a gift of $100,000. And we had other donors step up and offer another $65,000 for the construction of a pole barn on the site. At that point, we put some conceptual plans together and to determine what we would like to do with the pole barn. And essentially, the barn is to be used to store woods that are cut by the sawmill, have a wood shop for the men to build the custom wood products that we talked about, have a few offices for counseling, and a place for the men to eat. We put the conceptual plans together, and at that point I approached Ryan O'Gara at APC and wanted to make sure that we were on the right side of the law, so to speak, from a zoning perspective. And Ryan consulted with the APC attorney. About 4 weeks later, we received a response stating that our current operations and what we propose to do are not consistent with agricultural zoning. And that's why we're here tonight, to ask for a rezone. So the wood storage and the wood shop are a critical part of the program. As I mentioned, many of these men are coming from families, from homes with families where they're leaving as the primary provider for their family, and there's certainly no one back home that's going to spend tens of thousands of dollars on a rehabilitation program for them. So the men come here and they work to support themselves. So the critical part of this building is that we want to build this building so that along with the other things that we're doing on the property, this ministry can be self-sustaining. And I don't think I need to dive into the whole issue of addictions and the opioid crisis that is well documented in our culture now, and that's what we're trying to address. So we respectfully request a rezone of these 10 acres to I-1 so that we can build the building that we had planned to build. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. With that, do we have any questions from the commission members? I see that we have a couple people here as well. We will start with those in favor of the petition. If anyone wants to speak on behalf of those in favor. Please. And if you would, please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. My name is Ken Clark. I live in 98 Penridge Court here in Lafayette, and I'd like to just speak in favor of this proposal. I'm a member of Faith Church. I've volunteered out. I've seen the work of the counseling. I've seen the transformation in these men. And my wife and I, before COVID, we had the men out to our house once a month, and we shared lunch. We played games. You know, a lot of these men have not seen what a family life looks like, and my wife and I are able to spend some time with them, show them what a family life looks like, and we would love to see this move forward. We're grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
My name is Phil Lichte. I live at 2023 South, 100 West in Lafayette. I'm in business for myself. We have a business jail, still works in Monticello, but I do live here, and I'm a deacon at Faith Church. I've been involved in working with men with addictions for some 13 years now, and been involved with restoration since we began it. And the challenges of those first 9 years, we were limited to the contact of the men. It was once a week, and so we couldn't feed it into their lives as far as the way they worked and helping them learn those things. We were mostly working with their addictions. And with that limited contact, they fell away easily. The encouraging part about being a part of restoration ministry, and I do counsel out there as well as have the opportunity to teach out there, is the men are involved 24/7. They're involved not only with, like Joe said, the teaching and the counseling, but involved learning how to work. And I'm currently counseling a gentleman that's in his 50s, but there's several guys that will come to the program that have not learned how to work yet. And the working in the wood shop and around the nurseries and things like that, they're learning that part of it. And that's also an encouragement and a help to them. Another thing is there's many men from the church that are involved in the program that are not pastors, but they're just lay people. And so they are feeding into those men's, they're working alongside of them in the sawmill, and they're feeding into those men's life during that time. So I'm very much in favor of the zoning and proceeding with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ecke.
Good evening. My name is Jerry Jamison. I live at 3904 Pasadena Drive. I've lived in Lafayette since 1958. I joined Faith Church when they only had about 40 people in attendance. So that was a long time ago. I've been a member for 53 years. I can tell you that this ministry has been on our hearts for a long time. And when we got the opportunity to build such a facility for the ladies, that really put this up on the front burner for us to think about. It would be a big disappointment if we can't carry through with it. I counsel there now, and I'm finishing up really with two young men. They're in their early 20s. One is a resident here in Lafayette. One is from out of state. And one of them is finished, one is about to finish. If they knew that this was even possibly to be eliminated, they would be brokenhearted. And I will be too. I've counseled with our regular counseling ministry for 16 years. I counseled before that, but I wasn't certified as a biblical counselor, but I did it just generally when the pastors asked me to do so. But after being certified, I worked in the counseling ministry, which presently is housed in the North End Community Center on Elmwood. I counseled with some addictions at that time, and I have to say, with not much success. And I was always in favor of something where we can hold these men accountable. And just to come in for a 1-hour counseling session once a month just doesn't do it. But we can do that in this facility. Those addicts need two things. They need accountability, and they need to learn how to work. And this gives them an opportunity for both. And without it, they're just not going to make it. And those are the two elements that I know it's needed. I knew it was needed back when I was counseling, and I resigned from that in March of 2020 because I was fighting a chronic cough. And I'm beginning to get over it, so I've gone out and I counsel at the Restoration Ministries. And what a blessing it is to me. I'm 86 years old. I love doing it, and my counselees love being counseled too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jamison.
Thank you. I'm John McKenzie, and I live at 7700 Posey Lane in Lafayette. I've been a volunteer at Restoration for 4 years now, and it's been a real blessing to come alongside these men to help them develop a good work ethic. If you total up all the volunteers at Restoration that go out to help the sawmill, we have over 120 years experience. That's in plant management and engineering and manufacturing. So our goal is to help men develop a good work ethic so they can go out into the business world once they complete the program and become a good employee. That's our goal. My career spans 47 years in the manufacturing field, and I noticed in my final years a decline in the work ethic. And I think you hear that in industry today. There's a decline. So our goal at the sawmill is to work with the counseling ministry and provide those tools that men need to have a good work ethic. Just as the men at Faith Church years ago showed me how to develop a good work ethic in the workplace, I now want to do that for these men. Before Restoration, I worked in a Jobs for Life program. That's where we come alongside of people who have been incarcerated and help them get a job. So we'd work with them on resumes, job interviews, and a career goal plan, which we call a roadmap. And so we'd lay out some process of what is their career goal, how do they get there, what kind of education do you need, and so on. It's very similar to what we're trying to work on at Restoration here. So those things, I like helping those people. That's just been a passion of mine. The sawmill is a perfect setting to teach those skills and trades. We have equipment. We need to learn how to run the equipment. We need to know how to take care of the equipment. We want to build a product that's good for the customer. So we're working all the time with the men to develop those skills. We need the sawmill to grow, and that's what this is all about. We want to grow the ministry. We want to build the building. We need a building. And so you become part of that. So I've enjoyed working there. The other volunteers enjoy working there, and we want to help these men. We want to provide something to the communities. Most of these men don't live in Lafayette. They come from other states. We want them to go back and be a vital part in their community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKenzie.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Luke Flowers, and I live at 538 South 27th Street here in Lafayette. I am a former resident of the program. I moved on from Phase 2 of the program at the beginning of April, and I will be graduating as of now on August 11th. My time in restoration came at a very important crossroad in my life. In early August, I was diagnosed with major depression disorder with suicidal tendencies recurrent, post-traumatic stress disorder, and general anxiety disorder with panic attacks. I was hospitalized on suicide watch for a week, and I was also about to become a father. My life is in shambles. I worked in the live event industry as a sound engineer and production manager and a video engineer. And my life had no real order to it, and I spiraled into hopelessness and despair. Given given at the time I was 23, I was married with a kid, I didn't have a lot of money or resources to get help that I really needed. And by the grace of God, I heard about restoration. And restoration offered a very affordable program to come and change my life in all the ways that it needed to be changed. Outpatient programs from the hospital ranged from anywhere to $6,000 to $10,000 a week, depending on where I was in Oklahoma. There just simply isn't anything out there that I'm aware of that offers affordable ways for people to change their lives. I needed to learn how to work in a healthy balance. I needed to untangle a terrible past. And I needed to work to become the person I needed to be for my father, or for my child, and for my wife. The men that came out to the farm, and come out to the farm, who many of them are not paid, changed my life. They listened and untangled for 7.5 months many, many issues that many people wouldn't have touched with a 10-foot pole. And I'm incredibly grateful that this land was used for something that changes people's lives, because it would not have, my son would not have a father without it. I would not be standing before you today with the path that I was on, and my wife would not have me as well. So by the grace of God, I'm very thankful for a place that stood up and said, we need to change, and we need to help people change. Not many people have the courage to do that. And this land that's been gifted to the church can be used to do that for many more men to come. Thank you.
Congratulations on your recovery, Mr. Flowers, and thank you for your comments.
Joe Fornwell. I live at 408 Main Street, Battleground. I'm also a former resident of restoration, so I graduated the program in August of 2017, and they hired me on right after, so I help manage what we have right now as a sawmill and a woodworking business. So I obviously strongly in favor that for this rezone. Again, not to repeat comments, but my wife and I also wouldn't have been able to afford something that I needed. I had come clean as an addict, but I didn't know how to be a father of 2, now 3. I didn't know how to be a husband that my family deserved, and so restoration helped me. I needed something long-term, but there's not many options that are affordable, and insurances don't always cover what you need for that as well. And so restoration, really, it's extremely affordable, and it taught me to help provide for myself and my own recovery and not be a burden on my family, another church, anything like that. So it was extremely crucial in my change in my recovery to be able to have a long-term facility that I could come and try to learn how to work hard, how to be a father, how to be a husband, and how to do that effectively while being a contributing member to society. So, so for the last 4 years I've worked here. We moved here. We lived in Elkhart, a couple hours north of here. We moved here just to be part of the ministry, to be close to it, and to try to help other guys who are in my situation, other families who are in the same situation I am. And so this is, again, I don't know of any other place that can do it as affordably as they've been able to do out at Bethany Farms. And so I just ask that you vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Congratulations as well, Mr. Formal, and thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this?
My name is Gary Shiverdecker. I live at 2318 Drexel Drive, Lafayette, 47909. My wife and I have been members of Faith Church for going on 18 years now, and we've seen restoration start from its infancy at Bethany Farms and grow to what it is today. These past two gentlemen that stood before you are great testimonies of the product that comes out of that program. And I've been involved in counseling there, and I've also been involved in mentoring and also transportation of these young men to different appointments. And I can tell you this, that the ones that do stay with the program are committed, and they want to make their lives different, to go back to wherever they came from. And we're talking about all parts of the country, from Washington State to Pennsylvania, and then from north to south. It's a pleasure. My wife and I both are involved in discipleship of these young men on Sunday mornings, and we see them at other times, and I see them occasionally throughout the week. I would also tell you that I am very much in favor of continuing this program and for the rezone that's before you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Shiverdecker. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this petition? Ryan, do we have any social media comments in favor?
Presently, no comments on this item on social media.
Thank you. I think we've had enough time to receive those. With that, those in opposition, and before anyone steps up, should we do the letter first?
Yeah, I think we should go ahead with read the letter of the petition, please.
Ryan, we also need to know the length of the letter, or the length of the...
Qualifying.
Or for the petition. Is it greater than 300 words?
It's one sentence.
Thank you. Perfect. Go ahead. Take your time, by the way.
All right, I'll read it very slowly. What we have here is we have 12 addresses, various individuals. I won't recite their names or addresses. I did scan this in, and so if there's interested in seeing it, I can provide it. But we essentially have 12 individuals' addresses with signatures attached to those addresses. The petition reads, petition against the rezoning of the Bethany Farms from agriculture to industrial 1. So signifying that, you know, these individuals below signed are in opposition. That is it.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition of this petition? Yes, sir. If you would, please come forward and name and address for the record, please.
My name's Joe Urbanski. I live at 7860 Kip Farm Road that is adjacent to the property. And
Mr. President, this
I'm
individual.
all
that
for the value
signed the
of recovering
Sir,
anyone.
One second, if you would. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
What, Ryan?
I want it to be known that individuals that sign the petition, if I understand the bylaws correctly, cannot speak.
We actually checked on this, Ryan, but thank you for jumping in. We checked, and he's actually okay to speak. So
Okay,
we're
very
good to
good.
go.
Thank you.
Sorry
Okay.
to interrupt, sir. Go right ahead.
I'm sorry to. So I've dealt with faith for a long time, and I know what you do in the community. I used to be a young skateboarder where your skate park sits right now. I was a troubled kid, and I did have problems. I've known that place since it was built. I used to ride my skateboard in the foundation. I watched it grow, and I grew out of the community in Heritage Estates where I grew up across from it. I know you have a valuable asset to our community. You do a lot of good. The only thing we are considering at Kip Farm Road is our security and our safety. Here again, I face faith again coming close to my home when I have moved out of town to be away from that. And I'm all for saving people and the value of it. But to bring that out to the community where we live, where we work really hard to stay away from that, and to bring that out, where's the security? Because quite frankly, I'm not seeing it. We feel threatened, and I don't think I should feel threatened living in the community where I was raised. And you haven't approached any of us on our road to explain what's going on or given us any insight, and that kind of bothers us. So if we're going to be neighbors, it should be more neighborly approached and just have an understanding of each other, and I think we can move a lot of things. And that's all I ask, is that we're aware of our neighbors and we respect each other. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Urbanski. Petitioner, would you like to rebuttal on that? I'm sorry, are there any others in opposition? Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brent Mckenzie. I live at 7865 Kip Farm Road. I'm the HOA president. I'm kind of nervous. I've never spoken in front of this many people.
You're doing great.
From what I've heard, it seems to be more about the program and not what I assumed was the whole purpose of the meeting was for this rezoning right here for the business. But I understand now that it is hand in hand, and after what Joe said, we are scared, we are nervous, we don't know what's going on. What can be our security given to us about that side of, their business or the program? In 2017, my son was fishing at a public pond, which is on Bethany's farm. A stranger approached him and asked him where he could buy a shotgun. He's 16 years old. Later on in that summer, him and his girlfriend were down there fishing, and an uncomfortable presence came from the woods from two men. He was so uncomfortable, he packed up and left. In 2018, our garage was broken into. I'm not saying it's anyone from this facility. It's highly ironic. We also had trespassing on our lane. We have a 5/8 mile lane with no trespassing signs, and these gentlemen tend to not abide by that. 2019, a neighbor was barked at while getting her trash cans while they were in their underwear. It's not cool to us. It's scary to the women, scary to the children. Also another case of trespassing on 2019, during the summer. 2020, a neighbor's garage was broken into. Again, we're not pointing fingers, but it's very coincidental. There's 50 acres back there set in the very back. You're going to have to walk through a lot of woods to get back there, which someone could do that. I'm not saying that's not possible. we'd like to know, what's the success rate of the drug rehab program? Those were my concerns, like personal concerns right there for our children. We have children from 1st grade to 12th grade that live on this lane back there. That's our utmost concern. And like my neighbor spoke, we have not been informed of anything. How would you guys feel if drug addicts, whatever kind of addiction was brought into your backyard? We back up to this property. Everyone here, everyone on that petition, I'm the author of it. I spoke to every house on 800 there. They're not for it.
For whatever reason, they're just not. For our safety, that's already been spoken, sorry. One of my other concerns is if the rezone does go in, where's the wastewater going? How's it going to be taken away from the property? On I-1, I've looked it up, and it does state that the wastewater has to be taken away from the property as well as watershed, like rainwater or field drain or whatever. What kind of safety measures are going to be taken against our agriculture if they do get rezoned into industrial? What kind of foreign material is going to be introduced into the ground that could be brought into our land from animals? It says there's 14 uses and only 7, sorry, I'm very nervous right now. 7 are only used in A and as in well as in I-1. What are the remaining being used in? What are they? We don't know what that is. I kind of feel like we don't have information on the rezoning, let alone their intentions on bringing these people to our neighborhoods, in our backyards, where our children play. Me personally, I'm asking for a continuance on this so I can get more information about everything. Who's taking the responsibility for any kind of liability that happens? Is it the church? Is it the donors? Is it the county? You know, we don't know any of this stuff. I think that's it. I'm sorry for being so nervous, but I want to thank you for your time. I believe that's it.
Thank you, Mr. McKenzie. You did a great job. Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Hello, my name is John Kuntz. Excuse me, I had a little bit of a head cold, so hopefully I can speak okay, and I've been speaking all day. I live just to the north and to the west of that property, and you know, conceptually, I love the concept of this whole thing. I mean, I just, when we went to buy our property, hi Vicki, and you know, we saw this was across the road, and it's like, it's going to happen, and everything Faith does has been top shelf, and I was very, and I sound like I'm a guy starting off saying, you know, the four, but my against is mild. I don't live next to the place. I live across the road. I'm a little out of the noise area. I will say that my advice to you guys, your skid steer needs a forward gear because all I ever hear is the backup beeper. So if you could work on that, I'd appreciate it. I think, you know, my worry, I think about this, and I kind of agree with the fellow that just spoke, is for as good as Faith is about so many things, and they've been horrible about something, and I think that's why people have issues with this. And what they've been horrible about is community outreach. It's like, you know, I met Greg and I met another fella, good dudes, and I went and bought some wood from them, but I didn't know anything about the place. I mean, anybody can go and ask them, but I would just think you would want to come talk to the people in your area. These concerns, I think, would probably be more minimal, but so I have issues with it. Just because it's been a surprise to everyone who lives there. No question, everybody who came up and said, rah, 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 this is awesome, they were the part of the program, a member of Faith, and they didn't live anywhere near it. Because the people who know the most about this are the people who live nowhere near it. You know, so my other concern is it's a great local community service when I've heard over and over that most of the folks that come here are not from our area. And gosh, don't have plenty of people from our area who struggle from these same issues. But that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coons. Any others wishing to speak in opposition?
My name is Mary Shoemaker, and I live on Road 1000, which is really, I'm going to say, right behind them. The issue of security is huge because my house, too, has had somebody in my house. Now, I can't say who it was, but it is scary to think that there are people coming in and out that I don't approve of. I have heard pretty much, I am in agreement with the people who are in opposition. I moved out there because it's agricultural. That's what I want. If I wanted to be in the middle of industry, I would have come someplace else. I noticed that most of the people who deal with this don't live out there. They live in Lafayette. But do highly consider this business of people getting in my house. Not like that.
Thank you, Ms. Shriek. I apologize if I missed the last name. There was a little piece that I missed there. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Ken Suda. I live at 7890 Kip Farm Road, which is directly down and closest to the proposed area. I moved out there 21 years ago, basically like some of these other people, move out to the country where it's quiet, peaceful, and the biggest problem I had was maybe a couple cows coming up in my yard that I'd chase back down. Since this started, well, number one, I understand everything that's going on, all the people that are for it. Yes, it's a good thing, but it's not going into their backyard. All I've heard since this started was a constant beeping from morning until night, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, just a constant beep. I can hear it in my bedroom, in my house. Many of times I wanted to go up and say, hey, you know, can you tone it down? There's different levels, different decibel levels on backup beepers, and that's got to be the highest one because I don't need to know they're backing up when I'm in my bedroom. I mean, I don't need it. And to go outside, sit on the porch, try to enjoy what I basically looked for 20-some years with my wife, a decent piece of ground, wooded, nice and quiet, you know, just easy going. It just went out the window with all of this. Another thing is the people, I think it's been mentioned quite a few times about the people wandering around. Now, I know these people, once they're rehabilitated, everything is great, but up until that point, there's no, how could I say, when they're staying there in those houses, there's nobody monitoring them where they go, what they do, or whatever. Like I said, or what, like you have heard, they've been spotted walking down our road. You can have 10 that are really troubled that are going to turn around, maybe 9 will turn around, but that one you always worry about. What's he going to do? What's going to happen? The security that we had there is gone. The proposal on the extension of the pole barn for the wood storage and that, I don't know, did they say that was going to be a sawmill also? I mean, I hear the sawmill run constantly when it starts up. The fork truck backing up, beeping constantly. Like I said, from morning until night, sometimes late, 6, sometimes even 7 days a week, this will go on. And to try to live in a peaceful environment that you signed up for and bought that property, looked for it all your life, you got it, and now it's being taken away. So, I mean, that's all I got to say. I mean, there's good to it, but there's also no consideration of the people that lives around there. Everybody that lives around there, or everybody that talks about it, does not live around there. If it was in any one of your backyards, would you like to listen to beeping constantly or be concerned about who's coming down the road, walking around your house at dark? You don't know what's going on. I mean, to me, that's a big concern. I don't have children anymore. They're grown and gone. But there are quite a few children in our development that you got to be worried about. Not only children. My wife, anybody's family that lives around there, who knows what's going on? Do you have to keep a gun loaded in your dresser right all the time just in case that one person out of 100 decides to go nuts? Amen. I got nothing else to say. I just hope you take my words into consideration and everybody else that talked tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suda.
equally as nervous. Dawn Mckenzie, 7865 Kip Farm Road. One of the other neighbors that she just got her second COVID vaccine, she's not well, but she had went down to speak with the pastor as a couple years ago, and all the answers that we got were very vague. We were dismissed. We asked what type of addictions, weren't really given any answers. My heart's pounding. Like, why wasn't this built more near the church grounds instead of like us as residents that, again, we sought out country living? And basically, I would like to start running one day without feeling like I'm being swarmed by bees when I exit our lane. Because when you come back to all of our homes, you go down a lane. So, I mean, it's just unsettling. And again, if there were some sort of security or even like kindness, neighborly reactions, I'd feel a little bit better, but I just don't feel safe out there anymore.
Thank you, Ms. McKenzie. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Wintergreen, which is right down the road.
Sir, if you're going to speak, would you please come to the microphone? Thank you.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to ask a question. Letters were sent out to, I think there's, 6 families that live back there right now? And only 2 or 3 of those families got these letters. And my question was, you have Wintergreen, which is right down at the end of 800, which is there's Wintergreen and Wintergreen South. A lot of people live there. Why didn't any of these people get a letter as to what's going on with this, as far as this petition goes?
We'll have the petitioner answer that in the rebuttal. Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Petitioner, your turn for your rebuttal.
Thank you. Again, for the record, Tyler Oaks with Ball Eggleston, 201 Main Street. I'm going to start with that last question first and figure we knocked that out of the way. So APC staff can back me up on this, but the requirement is it's any property that's adjacent, across the road, or within 100 feet of the property. So we go through the beacon map and we address all the properties that are within those boundaries. So I can confirm, based on greens cards I've gotten, I think we got 5 or 6 of them back, but we sent registered mailing out to 8 different ones. I'd be happy to provide that list if necessary. APC also has that on file. So in terms of the subdivisions you're discussing, those fall outside of the purview of the requirement, and we do not have to statutorily send them certified mailing. We do put up signs as well. There are 2 signs up for any passerby to see that also informs them, and we publish in 2 different newspapers, so it was visible to see there with both the Lafayette Leader and the Lafayette Journal-Courier. Moving to the next point, a lot of people are talking about security. I want to emphasize with this board that security falls out of the purview here. What we're focusing on is this lot right here, not the entire program, not whether they can be there or not, because they're there. That's already been approved. That issue is moot. Whether this is approved or not, that program is going to continue, and the duplexes have already been approved. It's just a matter of, is this a right fit for that zone? Is a sawmill appropriate for this zone? We rely on the AP staff's recommendation that they believe it is. It is in a rural area. And I-1 is extremely light, and to make sure it's even lighter, we file the commitment. I know there was a question regarding the 14 uses, and there was a little bit confusion about the 7 and 7. I believe what Ryan was saying earlier was currently, based on the commitment, 7 of those uses would fly in either Ag or I-1. The other 7 would only fly in an I-1. So that's why we're rezoning it, so we're allowed to have those other 7 permitted uses in this zoning. Those uses range primarily regarding lumber. A lot of the uses we've proposed, and I hope everybody has a copy of the commitment, that was also included in the certified mailings we sent to interested parties. But in those, we can kind of group them into things like forestry, agriculture, things like that. There was concerns of animals. That's not going to be a case. There will be no animals on this property. The Faith is dedicated to running this sawmill to help these men. So at the end of the day, with the security concerns, they're certainly heard, and we certainly understand it, and I know that Faith's leadership is willing to work with people to make them feel safe, because at the end of the day, Faith has been a pillar of this community for many, many years, and they continue to do so, and you don't get there without being a good neighbor. So I know they will take it upon themselves to make sure that that area is secured and make people feel safe. But at the end of the day, we're focusing on this lot, not whether the houses are there, because they're there. They've already been approved, and that's a done deal. We'd be happy to answer any other questions regarding the commitment. We feel we've made it sufficiently strict. We worked a lot with APC to make sure that we're making sure that the ministry can use all of their uses that they would like to use, while at the same time not getting too crazy where anything can go in there. It's going to be restricted to a sawmill, and the fact that they're building this new pole barn, they'll be able to contain it. I know Faith has also talked and heard the concerns about the beepers, and they're certainly open to looking into any possible way to bring that down. They're committed to doing it during reasonable times, certainly not 6 in the morning, and it will not be 7 days a week. So at the end of the day, they want to be good neighbors, and they're willing to work to make that happen. So kind of in closing, I just want to reiterate how important this program is to the community. There's nothing like this anywhere. And while there may be some negatives that come with it, the good significantly outweighs the bad. It's necessary. Addiction has become a huge problem in this country, and especially the Midwest. Anything we can do to help our fellow community members, I think, is something that should be celebrated and encouraged. I know my clients are going to be able to help make this better going forward, and I would certainly request approval adopted with the APC staff recommendation that this be rezoned to a I-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jackson, do you mind if Pastor Byer speaks as well?
Yes, sir. My name is Steve Byers. I serve as a senior pastor at Faith Church. I've been there for 33 years, and I reside at 40 Wildcat Bluffs in Lafayette. Those of you who know the Bible know that Jesus was asked about the greatest commandment, and when he was asked that question, he summarized all 10 by saying, "You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself." So that is a value that drives much of what Faith does. And we do understand, as was mentioned, because we have a counseling ministry for 45 years, we work with people who are struggling, but when we do that, especially in a residential setting, we understand that there's also concern on the neighbors who would live around those activities. And so that's why my personal cell phone number is published every week. And so our church family, our staff knows that if there's any problem with any one of our neighbors that can't be solved, just have them call me personally. And so some of the neighbors have done that. So for example, on a Saturday morning, one of our neighbors called me because she was upset that we were playing paintball on that 100 acres of ground. That neighbor may be here tonight. She knows what I did. I called out to the property and I asked the people who were playing paintball to stop. Not because it's illegal for us to play paintball on 100 acres, but because we believe in loving our neighbors. Another one of our neighbors called me on my personal cell phone at home on the weekend and was quite upset because someone was driving an ATV on our 100 acres of property. Well, you understand, we're certainly within our legal rights to do that. But the person who called me could come up and tell you exactly what I did. I called out to our property and asked the person to stop riding their ATV. We believe in fulfilling our command to try to love our neighbors. It's interesting tonight that it's been suggested that we're not communicative. I'm saddened by that. That's about to change. I promise you that. We will invite our neighbors around this property to meet with us anytime. I'm a preacher. I'll talk to people anytime they want to listen. And more importantly, that was an attempt at a joke. More importantly, I'll be happy to listen to anything that anybody wants to tell us. The whole backup noise thing, that's new to me. I'll find out what we can do about that. I'll take my sledgehammer out there and take care of that problem tomorrow. I mean, we're more, it's probably my failure or our failure not to be as communicative with our immediate neighbors as we should have been. We will rectify that right away, and we will continue to try to be the best neighbors we possibly can. When it really comes down, what is this? We're asking the permission to build a wood shop. That's really what this is. It's a wood shop. I thought when we mentioned it to APC, they would say, hey, yeah, go right ahead. Somehow we got into a rezone with all of this. But it's a pretty simple request. It's just to have a place to serve these men. And, but I promise you, if you pass this, we will do everything in our power, just like we have at all of our sites, to try to not just love the men in the program, but love the neighbors who live around the program.
Thank you, Pastor Byers. Do we have any questions from the commission members? Comments?
Actually, I guess I have a couple questions, and maybe they're more directed toward Pastor Byers. And I apologize if I missed it, but what is the capacity for this?
Right now, we're able to serve 12 people, and today we have 7. And if you say, why do you only have 7? It's because the program is so restrictive. You heard, when you come to this program, you're giving up your cell phone, you're giving up your car, you're giving up all of your freedoms. You go to work at the pallet factory on the south side of town, and in addition to that, you receive intensive counseling, and you work at a nursery, and you work at a sawmill. That's because we believe part of overcoming addictions is learning to work really hard and liking the product of your hands more than you like the product of the bottle. And so there's not many guys who are willing to do that. So these are not just vagabonds looking for a free meal, but it's a program that can now serve 12. It's currently serving 7.
And then how long is the average stay? Is it weeks or months?
7 months.
7 months?
Did I say that correctly?
7 months, okay. All right. All right. Thank you.
I'm sorry, sir, that time is closed for public comment, but thank you.
Mr. Chair, a couple of points of clarification. I would ask Ryan if he could characterize the addresses of the signers of the petition. Are they indeed along 800 or 1000 East or Kip Farm Road?
Yeah, I do have a, let's see.
Ryan, why don't we scan it? Why don't we scan it and put it on the screen?
I actually do have an image of it. Is there someone in the room there I can email it to immediately? They can grab it?
Bueller?
They can put it on the presentation.
Bueller?
While he's doing that, it has been pointed out accurately that this is our interpretation of the code in determining appropriateness, and that all winds up in words that have nothing to do with ministry. There are these code things we're wrestling with here. I would like to ask staff, the second paragraph, the second sentence, the purpose of this rezoning is to legitimize the existing use and expand the operation. So my presumption on that means that they can't build the new building unless this is zoned something other than ag.
Yeah, what we have is this was not. This is essentially a violation of the current zone, the existing sawmill use that they are operating. When they came to us, when Mr. Blake came to me several months back, he explained what they were doing and asked and said that they were interested in expanding it, you know, as it's been described tonight. And we told him we would investigate it. And in the course of that investigation, we let him know, well, that current use is not permitted in the A zone. And so in order to not only legitimize it, but expand it, you'll need a rezone remedy. And I-1 was, in our opinion, the most expedient. It's the lowest intensity of the industrial zones. Couple that with the commitment, and in staff's opinion, they satisfied our concerns.
And Ryan, if I may follow up, then it is the sawmill use that is the piece that's out of compliance. The homes
Correct.
And the occupancy of those homes is within compliance of existing rules, correct?
Yes. Yeah, in the ag zone, you can have a single-family home, you can have a duplex, you can have a church, you can have, the various agricultural uses that they use on the property. There is some latitude with with current statutes that church ministries that are directly tied to the church organization have some latitude on use of the property. The sawmill use exceeded that in our attorney's opinion, and that's what led us to this conclusion.
Thank you.
And I believe you all can see the petition that was given to us.
Yes, thank you, Ryan.
Okay.
Ryan, I have a question. Is it only exceed the use because they're selling the furniture?
No, it's the actual processing of the material itself, the actual sawmill use itself. Someone can have their own personal saw, but that's not what this is. So this falls under more of a non-residential type of use, or in this case, a light industrial use.
Ryan, if you say legitimize, if we do not rezone this property, what happens to the sawmill? Does it remain if it's not allowed in this zone?
It essentially is essentially a violation of that zone, and so in instances where the zoning ordinance must be enforced, we can't just give it a pass. This is not a grandfathered use. So if a lawful nonconformity cannot be established, then the use has to cease.
I agree.
Use in this case.
Yes, I agree.
Do we have any other questions, comments from the commission members? With that, I believe it is, any public comments on social media, Ryan?
You can see what I'm saying here now. Look at that. No public comment on either platform.
I think they've had ample time. With that,
Mr. Chair, one more question, following up then on Larry's question and Ryan and Eric's response. There's been discussion on both sides tonight, what we've heard from remonstrators about the dialogue or lack thereof, or what could be done to improve things. If we would recommend denial tonight, or approval and the commissioners deny, then obviously there's going to be a potential negative impact on the current use. It's difficult. I don't know what the question I want to ask is, other than one possibility would be to not vote on this tonight. We can't decide to not vote on this unless the petitioner would suggest that. So right now we're going to vote on it. But if we vote on it and it goes against, and the ultimate decision is against, then what's unique here is there is the non-conforming use that is subject to change or be shut down, not by our command, but by other processes. So I would just throw it out there as that is another path that tonight could go.
Thank you, Roland, for that. Petitioner, and if you would like, because we're kind of putting you on the spot on that, if you'd like to meet with your client in the hallway for a couple minutes, we're more than happy to assist with that. If
We
not,
don't need to meet on that. We're not interested in that.
okay.
Appreciate the idea, though.
Going once, going twice. Final comments, commission members.
Just a procedural, just for my own. I believe we could, we can make a motion to continue it on our own if we felt the need. It doesn't have to come from the petitioner. Just for your clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Hearing nothing, we will, and no further questions, comments from the commission members, we will move to the yellow ballot, Z2829, Faith Legacy. Yes, with commitments, and we'll need some more ballots, please, as it appears as though we're short. Thank you for that.
So once again, so first we'll vote on the commitment.
Yeah, so our first vote will be Faith Legacy commitment. If you would document that on your ballot. And we will allow those to be tallied.
Those are all our commitment ballots.
Yeah,
We're done with commitments.
you've got all of those. You can go ahead and tally those, please.
And Don, do you have, from the virtual side, in regards to the commitment?
Yeah, I've got an approval.
Thank you.
One approval.
I'd also like to note for the record that Lisa Dahlem did leave a few minutes ago, so she will not be present for the vote, and there are now 14 total commissioners present.
And to recap, this is a vote for the commitment only.
13 paper ballots submitted, all of them voting yes with commitment.
And so that is 14 in favor, 0 against for the commitment.
We will now move to the rezone from A to I-1, Z2829. And Don, do you have the ballot virtually, or virtual ballot?
Yeah, we got a second approval.
Thank you.
Thirteen paper ballots cast, 1 against, and 12 in favor.
So 13 in total, 13 in favor, 1 against, including virtual.
Gotcha. Thank you very much for that rehash. High math gets me 13 in favor, One against.
That will now go to the county commissioners, and the date of that meeting is on June 7th at 10 a.m. in this same room. Thank you for all the comments and the discussion.
Thank you all.
On to administrative matters.
Mr. President, it was in the April meeting, the Plan Commission discussed prospects and factors involved with coming together to meet live and how voting, balloting, participation would occur, but there wasn't much discussion about how that might apply to people who are remonstrators or petitioners or interested parties, how they may, what options they may have for participating in the future virtually or what have you. And so it was thought that we might want to bring that up and perhaps have Eric talk about what's happening in the legislature that might impact that, what kinds of decisions or options are on the table for the Plan Commission going forward. Again, not relative to the Plan Commissioners, but relative to other parties and virtual involvement.
Mr. Burns?
Yeah, happy to. State legislature has made some changes. It's going to give a virtual option. It's going to allow bodies such as yourselves to have at least 50% present, physically present, and then the remainder can be virtual. There are going to be some policies that you'll need to pass. I will be sending a draft of that to David, Jackson, whoever else is interested, just for a preliminary look, and they'll work it over a little bit with me and then get it to you, and you'll talk about what kind of rules you want. You can make a lot of different rules. You could say, and I'm just picking an example, you could say that each commissioner can only attend virtually 4 times a year, 2 times a year, whatever you want. It's up to you. There are some hard and fast statutory state law requirements, like that 50% at least physically present, but there's a lot of latitude also that you can make your own way, make your own rules that you think are applicable and should be applicable to you. As far as the virtual participation, as long as there's any virtual participation, then members of the public have the right to participate virtually or physically. If there was some reason that you decided we're not going to have any virtual participation, I don't think anybody's suggesting that, you could cut off all the electronics you've got and go back to the same old meetings as long as you're physically present. So the real rule is, if anyone is physically present, the public has a right to be physically present. If anyone is virtual, and I'm talking about commissioners here, then any member of the public has a right to be virtual. So that's the parallel, if you can see what I'm saying here, is that the public has that right to do the same thing that any of you folks can do. Okay? And so it's going to be up to you how you want that. If you want to have virtual presentations made, you can do that. If you want to have an engineer appear virtually, you can do that. Anybody that wants to have input, it's going to be up to you whether or not you want to have them do that. Right now, as you speak, if you had an engineer that was going to speak on some issue, you can, even without COVID or anything that's happened because of COVID, you could always have a person chime in from virtual land. The laws that we're looking at now, the changes really apply to you folks and members of the public who want to have input in one way or another. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. David, do you think I covered what you'd like to have covered on that topic?
I think so.
Okay. I have one question for you. Attend the meeting virtually versus comment on the meeting. What are the rules?
Well, attend and observe is what the statute says. Members of the public have the right to attend and observe, and let's think about it, physically present. Go backwards in time. We know what that means. They can record, they can attend, they can observe. Okay, the law says if they can observe, then they could get out a video camera. And now you go into virtual land, and the same question comes up. What are you going to be able to do? Well, you can attend, yes. You can look at your screen at home. You can observe on your screen. You can record on your screen. And then the question is, do they get to comment? Well, If they get to comment from that podium, then if we have the capability, which we do, they can comment virtually. So that's not overly complicated. It's the parallel that I talked about earlier. If you can do it virtually, they can do it virtually. If you can do it physically, they can do it physically. The difference is no one has a right as a member of the public to speak at a public meeting. No person has a right to speak at a public meeting unless it's a public hearing, and you tend to do a lot of public hearings, so those people have rights to speak, or the body decides, yeah, we're going to let this person speak. So it's the same rules.
We do not have a means currently to allow them to speak.
Oh, we don't? Okay. I misspoke then. I thought we did.
Correct.
Oh, it's only written.
It's written.
It's only written.
Is that
Well,
acceptable?
Petitioners and their representatives get the go-to meeting link so they can speak, like Tim Ballensiefer did tonight,
But
but not,
general public would need to type their in favor, opposition, comments, whatever that might be.
And that could be a problem, because if you're in a, again, public hearing, absolute right to speak. It's an unusual situation, but you guys tend to do a lot more than most bodies, okay? This body does. You got public hearings a lot. And so what that means is if a commissioner attending virtually can speak and communicate, be heard simultaneously, then the members of the public should be able to do the same. Now, they always have the right to appear physically. If we don't have the technology to do it, which I think we do, quite frankly, I think, any of the apps that anybody can use would allow it, then we would have to allow that too. That makes sense? Again, it's that parallel principle. If a commissioner can do it, then a member of the public can do it.
The only reason that hasn't been considered is because of the issues with, with the Zooms and what have you. If those things are made public, then we could have somebody from, the Ukraine or somebody like that, and there's been,
You're talking about the hijacking of a meeting.
exactly,
Understood.
exactly, and that's why the go-to meeting hasn't been published publicly. It's just been sent to those folks who are presenting or are a member of the body.
It only comes up in a public hearing setting, but I think that is an issue that we'll have to deal with in
But
one
tonight
fashion
was
or
a
another.
public hearing.
Say it
Right.
again.
Tonight was a public hearing,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely,
So-
absolutely.
So I believe the now go-to meetings, Zooms, whatever, have somewhat corrected that by allowing all entrants to be locked and only unlocked by
A staff.
the Wizard of Oz who's
Person,
behind the curtain.
But how do you know who to unlock?
Correct, which then would be my question, that can we put something that, okay, they're all locked until public comment is, it comes time for that, and you have a chat feature of sorts to where that person then asks, I'm
Yep.
spitballing here,
No, you're hitting it right on what's being done. Keep going. Yeah.
and that person says, I would like to make a public comment. It comes back, unlock the person, that person speaks. Obviously, if profanities are yelled, et cetera, lock, mute, that person no longer gets a chance to speak.
Yeah, I agree. It's the same as that person there. Somebody acts out of line, they're not going to be allowed to continue to speak. Same thing virtually. What has happened in the city of West Lafayette for certain meetings is that the moderator will say, it is now time for public comment. If anyone is interested in making public comment, please chat to me, or however she's been doing it. I can't tell you. But go ahead and give me in writing who you are, what your name is. I'm going to take you in, and the first person, first come, first served. And so, is there anybody else? Anybody else? Okay. We've got them all. We've got 5 people. The first one is Eric Burns. The second one is Jackson Boken. And then they take them in order and they speak. So once they brought the names in, it's done. Those are people in the room, and we're not going to take people after that, because it could, cascade on and on. So anybody else? Okay, that's it. Here's our group, and then they speak. So back to your point, you got some control. You got the button if something strange was happening.
The button to mute an unruly remonstrator is one thing and very important. How in the world do we know who we're actually hearing from?
Yeah.
And even,
Yeah.
state your name and address.
Mhm.
Never have I wondered if the person standing at that podium, now we generally don't ask, but I suppose you could be somebody that you claim that you're not, but you can totally do that online. And even if they put Roland Winger and put my address down, that doesn't mean it's me. They could just look me up in the proverbial phone book. Not that residency and addresses are a thing in Tippecanoe County these days, but you never know. I don't want to, I think we got to be sharp on this, and monitoring can't be fearful, but it would be.
No, there are challenges, there's no doubt. It's uncharted territory.
I do believe that there is at least one or two systems out there. There are one or two systems out there that allow you could have someone raise their hand, or once they've indicated on whatever the media is that they want to talk, that you can send them a secure link that is used one time that opens a portal for them to be able to comment through a browser. So those are available.
So, how many, who's monitoring it currently? No one.
Monitoring what?
Monitoring our meeting currently. So does this mean bringing another party on to monitor the virtual piece of the meeting?
Well, I mean, somebody's monitoring comments. In this case, Ryan was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And can that same person, in this case Ryan, which he presents a lot on many what might be considered complicated, whether it be plan developments or whatever the case might be, can he monitor and still handle that task?
Well, I can speak for myself.
You're virtually,
I
you're
think
not allowed to speak.
Canceled already. I think we've been fortunate that we've not been deluged with comments on social media. So I have been able to manage, but I think we were severely tested with that Trinitas rezone case. That was one where I presented the case and was monitoring social media at the time. Hindsight being 2020, I would have had someone else take it over because there was a lot of comment, and it was tough keeping up with it. So I think if we expand the net and allow more people in, via GoToMeeting or what have you, it probably should be, someone has more of an exclusive role to monitor it so that no one slips through the cracks.
I just think it's problematic if we allow petitioners, proponents of a given case, zoom in from afar and appear visually and be able to have real-time back-and-forth conversation, and we don't extend that same opportunity to remonstrators. I think that, as a practicality, a voice is more impactful than a text. And so it's problematic, I think, if we don't extend the same opportunity to both parties.
Yeah, I agree. Whatever we do, it's got to be even-handed.
Question for you, Eric, as the legislature writes these rules when we may not know. Are these expected to extend past COVID? Let's say we get back to normal in a year or 2 years. Are they still saying we can have virtual meetings?
Yes, the state legislature did pass, and the governor signed, and it was, it was popular legislation, let me put it that way. Elected officials like it a lot, so they got a lot of strokes for it at the State House. And so as long as the governor's emergency order maintains, and that's right now going to be through the 31st of May, none of this matters because we can do whatever we've been doing. It doesn't matter because it's an emergency still. What's going to happen, I believe, is on June 1st, we're going to wake up and there's going to be no extension, is what I'm planning on for my purposes of my people that I'm advising. Let's get something done. Let's be at least get the basics done. And you can always change it. It's up to you guys to change. You can change it every meeting. You could have 3 meetings in a row and decide, we didn't get that quite right. Let's change that again. So if the governor extends it, which I suppose is possible, doesn't feel possible, but it certainly is, then we got another 30 days, because it doesn't matter, because we can do whatever we want, because we're still under an emergency governor's order. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm just,
Yeah, no, I know.
I mean, for me, we have pretty good attendance here tonight,
Yeah.
not only from commission members, from the public. We didn't have any comments from, I didn't think,
Well.
from social media. You know, but I don't want to take the easy way, but June 1st may be, you know, until we work through this, we may just do in person unless we get pushed back. For some reason, in person doesn't work. So I'm just throwing that out.
Appreciate that motion. Anybody want a second?
I would say in person, just we do what we do today, in person or in writing via the letter system, but we don't virtualize the public comment. So in other words, everything else that we've been doing here, we would stay doing.
Makes sense.
So if you want a motion, I'll make it.
Well, before we...
Yeah. Let me suggest, before we get into the weeds, that I put together the framework that you're going to then grow weeds on, and that will be in the form of a resolution that's going to lay out, this is what the state law requires, so adopt it because you got to anyway, and here are the options that you might have. Now, the state legislature does not say, here are your options, choose from this, but any options, as long as it allows as much public access, physical presence, as a state statute. In other words, you can always go that direction. You can't, for example, change and say, oh, we want to have everybody virtual. Nope. State statute's going to prevent that. And so you will have some latitude, and I'll try and cue it up. So I'll say, here's some examples that I'm seeing of what people are doing, just to give you an idea of the kinds of options you might have procedurally.
But from what I understand, if I'm understanding what you said earlier, that we must, if a virtual attendee can, commission member can
Yep.
speak,
Yep.
we then need to allow a virtual remonstrator
I agree.
the same, we need to afford the same rights. So then, does that bring up the question of, okay, we can attend even commission members virtually, but no comment? Or questions from the virtual?
Well,
Which-
and you could, you know, the rules back in the day, before there was an emergency about anything, was that you could phone it in from wherever you wanted, you just can't vote. So if you're a commission
they
member
can't
and you want to
comment
hear it,
or
you
vote.
want to know
Well,
about it,
Can you vote
you can.
or just not comment?
You can comment, you just can't vote. You are not there for purposes of a quorum, but if the chair and the body wants, hey, let them talk, why not? Sure. You can talk, you just can't vote, and you don't count for a quorum. So, you know, I don't know if Perry's still on, but obviously Perry wants to vote. I mean, or he wouldn't have bothered to be on here virtually. And that's my guess, is most people are going to do it because they want to vote.
But, so we can't allow them to be in virtually but not have a comment and still vote?
All right, say that again.
Allow them to attend virtually,
Yes,
but no comments,
okay.
and they can vote? Just like today,
Right,
but
no, and
Perry
you
can't
can't
talk.
parse it that direction. I mean, what we're talking about here is whatever ability a commissioner has virtually, a member of the public in a public hearing, again, public hearing, has the same power. Now, the system doesn't have to be the same. They just have to be able to be heard, and that's why other people are doing it. I think maybe technology-wise, this isn't as much of a challenge as we're feeling like it. We just haven't done it. We've chosen a different route. We've gone with the Facebook and the YouTube. That's the route we've chosen. I think we can change that pretty quickly. And again, I'm not an IT guy, as everybody ought to know, but security seems like there's ways around that too. And if somebody wants it, then you can say, you can participate. You know, somebody types in and says, I want to participate. I'm in Toledo. Okay, yes, here you go. Here's your link. You can do it.
So we
It's all
could,
possible.
and I don't know if Perry is still on the phone, if Perry chose not to attend, he didn't feel comfortable being here, he could still join the meeting, listen, comment, if
Yeah.
given the floor by the chairman,
Yeah.
but can't vote.
Right, that is something you could do if you wanted to.
Okay.
I'm not suggesting that's a good idea. I'm just saying that's a
Okay,
possibility.
but if we did, but if we went just to in-person meetings, and I think that's maybe what you're suggesting, that we do in-person meetings, and stick with streaming Facebook and and YouTube as we do right now with virtually every public meeting we have in the building. And then, but we don't take feedback from those means.
From the who?
From Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause so somebody then would have to be in person to make a comment.
Yeah. It's a
And then
parallel.
we could do that and just see if there's any, if there's,
I like that.
if there's, if folks say, hey, we don't feel comfortable coming, I do that.
Does that make sense to everyone?
I guess maybe I'm missing what's so complicated about allowing the public to comment with a virtual platform. It seems like having to monitor Facebook and YouTube is maybe more complicated than just having a link and we have somebody managing who speaks and who doesn't and who's invited. So if we just publish a link, whether it's GoToMeeting or Teams or whatever it is, and that's an option to allow. And then there is somebody in staff if they're available, and if not, then that's a moot point, and then we won't go that route. But just having a publicly available link, and that's for the petitioners and for APC who wants to attend virtually and the public, and then there is somebody, maybe one of you guys, that's just monitoring. Here's the protocol. If the public wants to comment, they raise their hand, and they mute, unmute. And if we find that Ukraine is bombing us with comments and taking over our meetings, then we can readjust. But it doesn't, I don't know, maybe it just doesn't seem quite as burdensome maybe as we're thinking it is. Just a thought.
And to be honest, I don't know, and we haven't done it, so I don't know how
And I think
burdensome that
I think it is being done, but the securities, I understand that. I mean, you could even say, you could even publish and say, if you would like to comment, contact this person at this email. So, email. And they will send you that specific link that you were talking about, Tracy, about that is your link. And that's the only link that exists for you, and you're going to use it, and then you're done. And nobody else uses it, and the second person gets another link. I mean, again, I'm not the IT guy, but that certainly sounds secure. Sounds like a lot of busy work if you got 30 people, too. So
We did this in Johnson County, and we used Zoom, and we just broadcast the link for virtual participation to the world, and we had a dedicated operator, a gatekeeper, who had the ability to mute anybody in the event that they got
I think that's doable.
knuckleheady, and that never happened. But I agree with Michelle. I think if you can just throw it out there to the world, and it's probably very unlikely that somebody has the inclination and the time to disrupt the meeting, but if they do, you can just select them and knock them out. That was on Zoom. That was my experience with Zoom. I would imagine you would have the same capability with what we use.
Yeah, and I guess I'd just be leaning towards, I think if we start out saying we're going back to full in-person, I don't think we're ever going to open up to virtual. I'd rather have it start out more open. If we find that it's not working, then we go back to just the in-person. But since we have the opportunity to pursue the virtual comments and the virtual participation, it seems like it would be good to allow more people to engage if they can.
And we can change the rules at any point in time?
Yeah, each meeting you can say, hey, anybody got any suggestions for the rules? Or the staff would be looking at that during the time between meetings, too. What worked, what didn't work. Let's change it.
So, Ms. Dennis, I think what you're saying is let's try it virtually and allow everybody access and fix the problem if we have a problem.
As opposed to starting small, I don't see us expanding. We'll just get comfortable with the in-person like we've always done.
Staff?
Larry, did you say this is doable?
Yeah, I think it's doable. I mean, we haven't had a lot of write-in comments, and again, the only issue that you could run into, and I don't know it's a major issue, is, and I'm not saying Faith is abusing it, but if they want 40 people to speak at the meeting, then
I agree.
It's 40 times 5. That's how many minutes they have to speak.
Same problem we have now.
It's the same problem we have now.
They don't have to drive here.
They don't have to drive here.
I get it.
So, I mean, but we only have 2 or 3 of the cases like this a year at most.
And I'm not arguing with Michelle. I think you're right. If it was a high cost of entry, that's one thing. It'd be like building a road that nobody drives down, and you never want to do that, but it's not building a road, it's in activating a link. That doesn't cost us anything. But if you try to go backwards from that, you know, a year from now, when we're out of this thing altogether, and there's probably very little aversion to being in public, and you mount a campaign like the letter campaign that we just had out west of town, virtually, that would be a friendly takeover of a meeting when people wouldn't otherwise have attended. And then you try to pull that back, the public is it's going to be pitchforks and torches time, because now we're Second Amendment or First Amendment, maybe both amendments.
Hopefully, start with the first, right?
I just, so I'm not against what you were saying, Michelle. It's just, man, the unintended consequence of trying to unback it. Yeah, it is.
I mean, I'd rather be at home right now. But at the same time, if they have the opportunity and that's their chance to say their piece.
Yeah,
Do we have to make that decision now? Or
Okay. No, what I would propose is, we're going to have a majority. All it takes is a simple majority of this body. And I have a feeling there's going to be a simple majority physically present here next time, just a guess. You just vote on it and you're done. You'll then pass your procedure. And you can amend it on the fly, as long as the minutes accurately reflect what you've done, you don't have to have it in that perfect.
Even though it'll be after June 1st?
Say again.
Even though it'll be after June 1st?
That's fine. No, it's fine, because we didn't have a meeting until, as soon as the meeting starts, you pass it, and here we go.
It's active right then.
If you want to make sure that you cut people off, and you just pass it 3 minutes ago, oh, we just passed that resolution, you can't do that. Well, we're not going to do that. We're just going to, in my view, you start with something fairly basic, and then you start building. Now, whether you start with it wide open or tight, yeah, that's a real issue. Could it be hijacked? I don't know. Has it happened anywhere? Has it happened in the great state of California? If it hasn't happened there, will it happen anywhere? I don't know. Just taking over virtually.
Can I just,
Let that happen.
did you have something to say, Larry?
The system would crash.
We do have an ordinance committee meeting, the first, an executive committee meeting after June 1st. And part of my motion was just try to make us legal, and maybe we don't need, do we need to be too concerned about that?
No, because as long as we have got it passed. For example, if the ordinance committee said this is what we think should be done by this body and by the ABZA, if you wanted to go that far, they would go ahead and pass it and say this applies, and as long as you guys agree with it, that's your rules. You know what I'm saying?
So
it's pretty easy to do correctly.
I got you. So each meeting can set its own rules.
Each meeting can set its own rules, or you can get a little bit together and say, look, let's
Make them all the
simple for
same.
everybody.
Yeah.
Because if everybody got a different set of rules, it's really hard to keep track of. And there isn't that much difference between what the ABZA does and what you do. Procedure type stuff.
Can I say something real quick, representing APC staff? It's really helpful for us to know who's going to be here and who's going to be attending virtually. It really helps us out a lot if we have those numbers ahead of time.
And that's a state statute requirement,
Okay.
that there be a notification, which, is nothing more than a practicality, is, I guess, because what if there are going to be 9 out of 10 people decide they're going to do it virtual? No, you're not, because you don't have a meeting if you're 9 out of 10.
Right. Well, if no one is here virtually, if everyone's here in person, then Don doesn't have to be downstairs at his computer for the whole meeting, doing the votes. So it's just nice to know.
Does anybody want to make a motion to send this perhaps to ordinance and to proceed, what would it be, to proceed basically with the current structure that is in place, send it to ordinance for review, for proposal for next time? Is that what we were talking about?
I don't know that we would need a motion to do that. I mean,
No?
Would we? Yeah.
Does anybody just want to decide to do that? Sounds good. Sounds good. Let's do that. Can we put this on the ordinance agenda, please? Thank you.
Well,
That's passed to you, Larry.
Good point. Well done.
Any other administrative matters? Okay, approval of the June Executive Committee agenda.
I move the following requests for subdivision be placed on the June 2nd, 2021 Area Plan Commission Executive Committee agenda at petitioner's request, placement thereon being without reference to compliance or noncompliance with the adopted subdivision ordinance. That's RE 0082 Gracewood Estates 2 Rural Estate Preliminary.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Determination of variances.
I move the following requests for variance from Unified Zoning Ordinance are not requests for use variance prohibited from consideration by ordinance and statute. BZA 2054, Reith Riley Construction Incorporated, BZA 2055, Tanya Lowry, and BZA 2056, West Lafayette Greenhouse Facility, LLC.
I second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Director's report.
Thank you. I emailed the report out earlier today. I'll answer any questions you have. I will highlight one thing. We are going to be convening as our comprehensive planning staff and looking at beginning to dig into the backlog of comp planning that we have to do. Real quick, you know, the comprehensive plan is really a patchwork of about 20 different plans that lay out future visions for neighborhoods, cities, streets, districts. And a lot of the county is currently under the guidance of a 1980 plan, so it's 41 years old, in a lot of ways out of touch. There's really, I think, heavy needs to get a Wabash Township plan update. Some of the smaller towns are very much in need of a new plan, again, because they're being governed by a 41-year-old plan. And so we're going to put together a priority list and short-term and long-term project for addressing some of those things, and we'll be bringing that to this group soon.
Excellent. Citizens' comments and grievances. Ryan, we'll give it 30 seconds, okay? Count quickly.
Okay, stand by.
Yes.
No further comment.
Thank you, Ryan. Gary, we'll take that motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second.